There's a good chance you've got fish in your kitchen right now because somebody, somewhere, told you it's good for your heart. And they weren't wrong. For most people over 60, fish is one of the smartest things you can put on your plate. But here's the part nobody mentions. The very same fish that protects your heart can quietly start working against it. And it has almost nothing to do with the fish itself, and almost everything to do with what's been done to it before it reaches your fork. 4 of the most common ways seniors eat fish fall right into that trap. Today, I want to walk you through those 4. 4 kinds of fish that a lot of folks over 60 eat all the time, genuinely believing they're doing their body a favor when the research keeps pointing the other way. There's the fried one, that's probably sitting in your freezer this very minute. There's the one people treat like a little luxury and lay over their weekend bagel. And honestly, that's the one that surprised me most when I started reading into this. There's the old-fashioned, traditional kind your parents and grandparents almost certainly ate. And there's one hiding in your pantry right now that you'd never think twice about. Stay with me to the end, because that's where I'll show you the one way of eating fish that does the complete opposite. The version that may actually lower your stroke risk instead of nudging it up. That part matters more than any of the warnings. Before we get into the 4, here's the single most useful thing I can tell you, and it's something a lot of people have completely backwards. It is almost never the fish that's the problem. A piece of salmon is a piece of salmon. What changes everything is what happens to it, how it's cooked, what gets added to it, how it's been preserved. One long study that followed thousands of adults over the age of 65 for more than a decade found something that stuck with me. People who ate their fish baked or broiled had noticeably lower stroke risk, but the people eating fried fish more than once a week, their risk of the most common kind of stroke ran about 44% higher. Same animal, opposite result. If you take nothing else from this video, let it be that. And if you're finding this useful so far, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. I put out a new video every week breaking down exactly this kind of thing for folks over 60. What helps, what quietly hurts, and what's just noise. There's a lot more coming that you won't want to miss. Let's start with the most common one, and probably the most deceptive. Fried fish. I'm talking about the frozen breaded sticks, the battered fillets, the Friday fish fry down at the church hall, the fish sandwich at the drive-thru. Now, why would frying flip a healthy food into a risky one? It comes down to those fragile good fats, the omega-3s. The whole reason fish earned its reputation in the first place. They just don't hold up well in a hot fryer. They break down, and a lot of them get replaced by whatever oil is in the basket. On top of that, most of what gets fried is lean white fish that didn't carry much omega-3 to begin with. You end up eating the breading, the oil, and the salt with barely any of the good part left. Another large study out of the United States found that people eating fried fish twice a week or more had a much higher rate of heart trouble overall. And look, I'm not here to tell you that you can never enjoy a fish fry again. That's not realistic, and frankly, that's not the point. Once in a while isn't the thing that gets people. The thing that gets people is believing they're eating healthy because it's fish 3-4 times a week when every single time it's breaded and dropped in oil. That's the version your arteries notice. But the next one is trickier because it doesn't look unhealthy at all. It looks like exactly the kind of thing a careful, health-minded person would reach for. Smoked salmon. Lox. That beautiful, silky pink stuff people fan out over a bagel on a Sunday morning and feel pretty good about themselves for choosing. Here's the catch. It really is salmon. It really does have omega-3s. But the smoking and curing process loads it with salt, and not a little. Fresh salmon carries around 75 milligrams of sodium in a serving. The smoked version? It can run anywhere from 600 all the way up to 1,200. One bagel's worth could eat up most of a full day's sodium budget for someone your age before you've touched anything else. This is the one that got me, honestly. I'd always quietly filed smoked salmon under fancy, but fine. It's expensive. It sits at the nice end of the deli case. You just assume it's the healthy choice. But that salty cure is the whole problem. And sodium is one of the clearest, most consistent drivers of high blood pressure there is, which happens to be the single biggest risk factor for stroke we know of. Now, if you grew up in a certain kind of household, this next one might hit a little close to home. Salt cod, dried fish, pickled herring. The kind of fish that's been around for generations, long before anybody had a refrigerator humming in the corner. And that's exactly the point. These weren't health foods, they were survival foods. Salting and drying was how people kept fish from spoiling through a long winter, which means they're built on salt, staggering amounts of it. Here's the quiet trap though. Because these foods are traditional, old world, handed down, natural, people assume they must be wholesome. But your blood vessels don't care about heritage. One study of older adults found that people eating well above the recommended amount of sodium were nearly 3 times as likely to have a stroke over the following 10 years. 3 times. And by the way, soaking salt cod overnight does help pull some of it out, but not nearly all of it, not even close. Which brings me to the sneakiest one of the bunch, because this one doesn't even feel like a treat. It feels like the responsible, sensible, everyday choice. Canned fish. The tuna, the sardines, the anchovies, the little tins of mackerel that live in the back of the cupboard for emergencies. A lot of folks lean on these precisely because they're cheap, easy, and they sound healthy. And the fish part often is perfectly fine. It's the salt packed in alongside it. And then it's what we do with it afterward. The mayonnaise, the creamy dressings, the breaded fried version at a restaurant. A few ounces of regular tuna can carry a real chunk of your daily sodium before you've stirred in a single thing. And while we're on the subject, yes, the really big predator fish, the swordfish and the king mackerel, carry more mercury, which can nudge blood pressure up in some people. But I'll be straight with you, because I'd rather you trust me than scare you. For most adults over 60, the heart benefits of eating fish still outweigh the mercury worry. That's not the headline here. The salt is. By now you might be wondering what all 4 of these actually share, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's really 2 things. First, the good fat, the omega-3 that's the entire reason fish protects your heart and your brain. It either gets damaged and diluted, like in frying, or it's technically still in there but buried under so much salt it stops mattering, like in the smoked and salted and canned versions. And second, the salt itself. Sodium pulls extra water into your bloodstream, your blood pressure climbs, and year after year, that steady, quiet pressure wears down the delicate vessels feeding your brain. High blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for stroke, and people sometimes call it the silent one because you simply don't feel it creeping up on you. Who needs to pay the closest attention here? If you're already on medication for your blood pressure, if you've got any kidney trouble, or if your doctor has mentioned your numbers ticking up lately, you're exactly the person whose body feels every extra gram of salt the most. And this is the part where I have to say the obvious thing, but I mean it completely. Talk to your doctor before you change anything, especially if you're taking medication. Nothing in a video on the internet replaces the person who actually knows your health history. Alright, that's the warning side of all of this. But I promised you something better, and this is genuinely the part I want you to walk away remembering. Here's the good news. You don't have to give up fish, just the opposite. The right fish, eaten the right way, may be one of the most stroke-protective foods on the planet for someone your age. What's the right fish then? The oily ones: salmon, sardines, trout, herring, and regular mackerel. The everyday kind, not the giant king mackerel we just talked about. The ones genuinely rich in those omega-3s. And the right way to cook them is just about anything except the fryer. Baked, broiled, grilled, steamed, poached, with little to no added salt, a squeeze of lemon, a little pepper, some herbs, a clove of garlic, and that's truly all it needs. About twice a week is the sweet spot. That same long study that scared us with the 44% number, it also found that people eating fish prepared that way had somewhere around 1/4 to 1/3 lower risk of the common kind of stroke. The exact same food we just spent 10 minutes warning you about, flipped completely on its head, only by changing the preparation. When I really sat with that, it changed the way I think about food in general. It's almost rarely about the ingredient itself. It's almost always about what we choose to do to it. Let's go back to where we started. That fish in your kitchen, it was never really the villain. It's what's been done to it. Fried, it can work against you. Smoked and salted and cured, it can work against you. But baked or grilled and kept simple, that very same fish may be one of the kindest things you can do for your heart and your brain. If you only hold on to 3 things from all of this, make it these. Skip the fryer, keep a close eye on the salt, and lean toward the oily fish a couple of times a week, cooked plainly. That's the whole story right there. And maybe, the next time you're standing in front of the freezer case, reaching for that familiar box of fish sticks, you'll pause for just a second and think about what's really inside it. If this helped you look at your own kitchen a little differently, share it with someone you care about, somebody who could really use it. And I'll see you in the next one.